Hi and welcome to the Soundschi Land Show, where everybody is upside down. Every day is upside down day in Soundschi Land. I just finished my second retreat this month. This time it was with Miguel Sant'ana. The last one was Handstand Factory. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it. Let me tell you, I do not recommend to do more than one retreat in a short time period because you do not have the time to digest the information you got. And it can be a little bit confusing. So in this case particularly, the teachers were very different. So it was also interesting from my perspective as a teacher, but from the perspective as a practitioner, I do have to admit that it took me a while to understand or to organize the new things I've learned, because they're for some parts contradictory. And integrate them into my own practice. First of all, I want to make something really, really clear. Since the teachers were so different from each other and their ways of teaching were so partly, I would say, contrary, I'm not going to go into what is better and what's not, because there's no such thing as a better method or not. There are different approaches. Each one of them works, obviously. And I think it's a matter of preference whether you like this approach better or the other approach. And also the question of what's your goal, who you are as a person, what do you respond to, all of that. So what I'm going to give you here is my pure personal experience that may or may not apply to you at all. But it'll give you maybe a taste of what it's like to work with Miguel. Before I started the retreat with Miguel, my practice was very much skill and technique oriented, which means I would give myself enough time to recover between the attempts, just to make sure I'm on point for the next attempt and don't screw it up. When I came to the first training with Miguel, we started with 3 sets of long holds. For me, that was, okay, let me tell you first. My consistent hold was between 45 seconds to 55 seconds, in that range, and that was consistent. My max hold was about 1 minute. And so we started with 3 sets of, for me it was 1 minute 15, and then 1 minute 10, and then 1 minute. And in between we only had 1 minute and 30 rest, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. So that was the long holds that I wasn't at all used to and killed me at the beginning. After the long holds, we started doing entries. So tuck up, straddle up, kick up, or scissor entry. And it's not that I didn't practice that. I did. Entries are actually, or have always been, part of my warm-up. But the amount of reps and the volume was just totally different with Miguel. So in general, I would say that his approach focuses more on the conditioning part. So being able to stand on your hands for a long time, and developing the capacity to actually do a lot of reps in one go. This, of course, is very exhausting for the shoulders and for the upper back and all the muscles involved. And since hand balancing is such a precision skill, I had a lot of trouble being able to do what I normally can do, which was a bit frustrating at the beginning, but it was also very humbling and showed me what I'm actually able to do. Because, and this is what I mean by it depends on what your goal is. So let's say, for example, in my case, I want to be able to produce a nice piece to music, like produce an act. And the act goes on for 5 minutes. And if my max hold time is 1 minute and I'm tired after that, I'm not going to be able to fill those 5 minutes with handstands, or I'm going to need a lot of rest in between, and it's just going to make everything harder. Same goes for if you want to work on technique in the first place. When you're fatigued, your skill work, your technique, is gonna be limited by the fatigue, because you're gonna fall out and you're not gonna be able to work at all. So I think this is a really, really good point he made, and something I'm definitely gonna take home with me. Because in my case, my technique is way better than my strength and endurance. So this part, strength and endurance, is the thing that limits me progressing, which is something I knew before. But I just wasn't really sure how to work it. And I also wasn't sure where my limits were, because it's hard to push yourself to your limits by yourself. If somebody puts you in the situation where you just have to deal with it, you realize that you're actually able to do things you didn't think you could. So that was a very, very valuable lesson for me. And also just putting myself back into the mode, or actually Miguel put me back into the mode where I got the right attitude towards work. You know, if you never get pushed, or if you never have a reason to go over your capacity, you're most likely just gonna get lazy and not do it. Another thing I really appreciated during the retreat, and I already said it in the interview, but I'm gonna mention it again, is Miguel's way of spotting. I usually don't like spotting a lot, because I feel like it changes my focus, and I can't focus on balance, and like it just makes things weird. But the way he spots is super on point. It actually helps you to get the sensations of where you should be, and he gives you enough space to actually experience that. Another thing I want to mention about Miguel is his enormous passion for teaching. So if you work with Miguel, as he says it, he gives you a piece of himself. He really puts his whole heart in it. So it kind of makes you a little bit patriotic. What I mean by that is that you build up a certain loyalty, and you feel like, oh, if I'm gonna go learn from somebody else, it doesn't feel right. It's kind of like betraying the teacher. So I actually think that's a good thing as a practitioner. If you go to Miguel as a practitioner, you don't have to think about anything more about like what you should do. It's very much he takes the responsibility for you, and he leads you the way. For me as a teacher, I find it very beneficial to see different perspectives, and of course my blog is about putting different perspectives out there just to show you the whole spectrum and everything that is there. But I found that very heartwarming, and he knows how to bring people together. He's a very social person, and you just kind of develop this huge love for that guy and a huge appreciation. I actually want to say thank you, Miguel, because it's really great working with you. Other than Miguel's awesome, passionate, authentic teaching, I want to tell you a bit about the venue. I was actually a bit disappointed of that. We were at this yoga retreat center called Vikasa, and from the outside, don't get me wrong, it looks amazing. It's right at the beach. You have an infinity pool, and you have 3 yoga spaces. But as beautiful as it looks from the outside, from the inside, you could definitely tell it was overpriced. I think one night for both Ivo and me was about $150, $160. Was it dollars? No, 160 euros. So actually more like $170. Anyway, you can check it on the website. And our tap was broken. It was moving around. One of my friends I met there, Mark Das, went through one of the floorboards, which could have been really dangerous because it was so rotten. So it's not that the venue was bad or anything, but the prices they charge were just ridiculous in comparison to what they offered. Also, the yoga space we trained at was very dark, and there were actually some incidents while we were there. Some confusion about whether we were allowed to use the spaces in the free time or not, and at some point they just wanted rent for it, even though they had told us that we could use them. So it was all kind of a bit, yeah. also, they didn't really have a space for us to socialize other than the restaurant. So the group was very spread out, which was actually very unfortunate because the people were really, really cool. And I'm just seeing it in contrast to Tada, where I was 2 weeks earlier, because we were all in the same house and we had the same living room. So we were just constantly on top of each other, basically. And this was just the opposite. You actually had to like message people to meet, or like make an appointment for everybody to go out together, which we did, which was cool. But the venue itself kind of made it difficult to just have an easy time with each other without having to think about getting together. So I think that was everything. I hope this video was beneficial for you, and if you are on the fence of investing in a retreat or workshop with Miguel, do it, really. It's the physical experience that is so valuable. Yeah, so remember that the world is your playground, so just go ahead and do whatever you love, and I'll see you next Monday on the Soundschi Show. Peace out.
Hallo!